morning. Welcome to Spirituality Gone Wild. It is that time. It is time for a cup of grata with a shot of expression and two squirts of reality. Ah! I have a great co squirt today who brings so much beautiful, beautiful wisdom with her. We're going to take a deep dive into forgiveness and healing trauma. Dr. Anita Sanchez is back again with us today, and we're going to really explore the the corners of forgiveness and what that really means for us in our life, as well as talk about her four sacred gifts and all of the other great work she's doing. But I think forgiveness is really high on the Richter scale right now. We've had a lot of things happening out in the world, and it really requires us going to the next level of kindness and forgiveness in order for us to show up in humanity as we are designed to do right now. So, without further ado, please welcome Dr. Anita Sanchez. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here too.
Wow, you are one of the modern day shaman, prophetic seers, bringers of light, of wisdom. You're an incredible being. You are one of these people that bring through messages that actually give us tools in which to live our life by that are honestly from the ancient tribes. There is nothing more exciting to me than indigenous work because of this reason. You are not to say you're an elder does you are an elder, but in a different sense. You're an elder for us in these times right now. You are our guiding light. You have been, it's like what I see is that you've been preparing for this work this whole time for what the world sits in right now. Does that sound about right?
It sounds exactly right. I really understand everything that my journey thus far has brought me to this point so that I can be of service. And that's not just altruistic, although it's when you're in service to others, you're in service to
Yeah.
yourself. So you're absolutely right. And I am honored to have the ancestors bring messages through me, but as also all the indigenous elders around the world who I know who are about having us all come together as one hoop of life, knowing that it really matters. At this time, we have serious challenges, so that means we need to have serious love and collaboration happening.
Oh, huge. Next level. It's got to
Oh,
be, it's up level. Absolutely nothing can be done the way that it has been being done. It all is requiring a shift of perspective, a shift of how that we see each other, ourselves. Let's talk about the power of forgiveness and why has this journey been so important to you? Why is the journey of forgiveness?
the journey of forgiveness, it literally it has meant my life. It has meant that I've been able to live a full life as a whole human being. Because the thought is, if I hadn't done some of the forgiveness that I've done, and it's not ever done. I mean, there's some big things that I have in my life, and we'll get into those. So people understand some of the steps and tools I used as hopefully inspiring them to move forward on their forgiveness, their hurts and mistreatments. But I literally know that if I had not done some major forgiveness on two big things in my life, that my wall that I had put up as a child and as a teenager, which was my wall, it was to keep out the bad stuff. Like nobody's going to hurt me ever again, and it's going to keep. And the thing that young girl and teenager didn't understand, it may have helped keep out some of the bad things, but those walls don't tell the difference. So all the good things in life, all the wonderful people, all the other relatives that are here, even enjoying just food and water, the fullest as a human being in gratitude for what we have, it can't happen if my life was filled with resentment, rage, retaliation, just identifying as my hurt and pain rather than as a whole human being.
I love this. And we're going to go deeper. Actually, it's pretty interesting. We're going to talk about something, and I'm going to do a trigger warning, everybody, that we're going to be talking when it comes to forgiveness and healing. Sometimes we do need to talk about the fact that there's some childhood trauma attached to the things that we have taken a deep dive. And one of the things that I appreciate about you is that you're willing to talk about the tough stuff to show others that are still sitting in it or afraid to step through it that it is possible.
Mm.
Before we step into that arena, I want to disclose that it was so interesting, Anita. I had a dream about my mom last night, and my mom's still alive, but she's not really thrilled with the fact that I'm doing what I do, as well as talking about what I talk about, being if it's abuse from childhood or that type of thing. And I'd like to preface this with the fact that she did the best she could with what she had. And I grew up in Diamond Bar. I grew up in a beautiful area, but unfortunately, there were some things that weren't so beautiful in the midst of all of that. And so to me, it's just I'm sitting here with this deep appreciation right now because we're going to have this talk, and it makes me happy because I woke up feeling, what is the message that I'm receiving in this dream? That this mom that I love so dearly, and she's written books and she's incredible. I'm telling you, you just love her. She's fabulous. But with our childhood trauma, she hasn't worked on her stuff, so it's hard to deal with mine. But I know that you also experience childhood trauma, and I want to talk about that because there's so many people out there that have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think it's a must, and it's freeing. So what you're alluding to is the 9 years of childhood abuse
yeah,
that I experienced from age 4 to 13. And now, on one hand, it's like what you're describing. I had this wonderful childhood filled with dreams and a Stekan Nawa grandmother, that's my tribe, who taught me all sorts of things, and my mom, just all these wonderful things that happened in my life. And I did well in school and sports. And yet I kept this secret. And the secret was the abuse that I was experiencing. And it had different moments where it was just unbearable. And to the point at age 9, a belief system came into me, which was the belief I would never be free, never be free. That's a heavy thing to have so young. But if you experience a lot of violence, a lot of lack of control of your own body, and what you consider safety, I would seek out my elders when I could go get away from my home, and also nature. So even in that, I will say, even in the deepest, darkest times, there is always something. However, I want to make it real quick, not to just be flash and exposing abuse, but to just let you know that if you experience this or something worse or something less, it's all possible to do the healing, to put everything together, let go and forgive, not forget, so that you can be present. But the darkest time came. The second big thing that I had to deal with was the murder of my father, and I was 13. And so it was race related. He was a dark skinned, indigenous, a Mexican person. And early that day, a black man and a white man had a fight. And the white man returned. It was a bar. My father was getting a drink after work. And the white man shot 3 bullets through his head and killed him on the spot. And I have already, okay, I have the childhood abuse. And now at 13, hit with, oh my gosh, regardless of how good or bad my relationship with my father, murder, race-related murder. And so what happened is that during the months after his death, which brought so many different things, I thought on one level, doing the healing and realizing all the stuff that come up around race and who's really cared about and who's not, who's the whole superiority thing and inferiority, all that stuff. But most important was with my dad was, oh my gosh, I thought the memories of the abuse, because he was my abuser, would be gone. He was dead. The universe took him. God took him, whatever you draw to. Um, but it didn't. The images in my mind were there, and they kept playing and playing, to the point where I actually even thought I murdered my father, because there were so many times I wanted him to be gone, not literally dead, but like, go, just go. And so I did try to kill myself. So I know that teen suicide is on the rise. This is real. But I also talk to a lot of adults who, from the outside, look like everything's great. They're really at the top and they're feeling stuff, but they have these notions come to them. And that happened to me. And it was very deliberate. again, not telling anybody. I had it all staged how I was going to end my life. Got the pills. I remember all that. My mom, where she hid her pills because she had high blood pressure. And when I saw her pills next to this big bottle of aspirin, I thought, I can't take my mom's pills. That costs a lot of money, and we were quite economically poor. So I'll take this big bottle of aspirin. And I remember just eating almost the whole big thing and prepared in some respect. Your mind seems clear, but at the same time not. So I even had a basket next to me, so if I got sick, I was shared a room with two sisters. I didn't want to make a mess in the room. Can you imagine all this as a 13-year-old going through this?
No, I
No,
actually can't.
yeah. I think
So
people who have notion or have even attempted suicide understand. And it's not, I'm not romanticizing or glorifying it at all. It's horrific. It's like a bottom. And I remember lying there going, okay, I'm going to die. And then my body started writhing. And I just was like, oh my gosh. And all of a sudden, my sisters and brothers are circling my bed. My mom's there. But he's like, what's happening? And then I'd come in and out. I remember throwing up like crazy and just my body hurting so bad. But something happened inside too. I had I clearly shifted in that, oh my gosh, I don't want to go. Look at all my brothers and sisters I love so much and my mom. Like, what am I doing? I want to stay here. I want to stay here. And two images appeared to me, which is spirituality gone wild. I don't always share these stories. But two things came to me. One, which is if you would come to visit me in Colorado today, you would see as you enter my living room this little toddler rocking chair. That image came to my mind. My grandfather, who I adored, made two of those rocking chairs in his lifetime, and one was for me. And when I was writing, and I want to live, I could see that. I could feel the love of my grandfather and my grandmother. And then the second image I had is one that my mother had shared with me a story about her mom, my grandmother, who I also just dearly loved. You know, she had 10 children. But after her first two, the doctor told her she could have no more children. Her body was, she was a tiny little woman under 5 foot. And the first two kids, one was 10 pounds. The first one, my mom was 15 pounds, if you can imagine, a 15-pound baby on a little woman with,
whoa,
yes,
no.
exactly. Exactly.
Okay, I had a 10-pound baby, but I
Yeah,
can't 15.
15. That's,
I'm 5'10", and 10 pounds was a
yeah, that's a
stretch,
big baby.
literally a
Yeah, mine was
stretch.
7 and 8, and that was big enough because they had.
Right, just no.
So
Poor
anyway,
mommy.
an image
Oh
that
god.
came up that's really powerful, because I was always taught that lots of things are possible. We just don't go by what's seen. There's other forces at work. And so my grandmother knew that she was supposed to have more children. So in the neighborhood in Missouri, there was a curandera, and my grandmother came from a long line. So she would have, after my grandfather left for work, the curandera would come. And my mom was only about 3.5 or 4 at the time. And she began telling me the stories. And I was like, what do you mean? Then grandma would be pregnant. Well, the curandera would come, and I was little, and they would go in the bathroom, but they would have piles of stuff inside, but then always run out. So I would always stay out the bathroom door. I could not go in, and they'd go send me to get more towels, some more, just various things, a pillow. She said, and I said, well, how long was she there? She goes, well, like most of the day till grandpa came home. I was like, a little 3.5 or 4-year-old sitting there all day? Didn't you fall asleep? Didn't you get bored? And she goes, no, I just listened. I listened to all of them. I said, grandma and the curandera were in the bathroom. That's who you're talking about. She goes, yes, and all the rest. I said, who are the rest? She goes, I think they were angels. I could hear all these different voices in there as the curandera worked with my mom. And sometimes she came twice, but I don't remember ever doing it more than that. And the next thing we know, my grandmother was pregnant. Her mom, my grandmother, was pregnant. And she had, after my aunt and my mom, who was number two, she had 8 more children, even though the doctor said she didn't
Ooh.
have any. And every one of them was that. So when I'm lying there at the lowest low, having tried to take my life as a 13-year-old, thinking there was nothing else, there was no possibility for me, um, that came to me, the rocking chair and these voices of angels, of that the impossible may look that way, but it's not. And we have lots of support. And those images still stay with me today. And the remembering as people share quite confidentially, kind of the things they're struggling with and wanting to find tools and practices and support to move to do what they also at the same time they know this divine thing that they were brought here to do and be in the world is still pulling them. But that needs to become even stronger. And part of the way you get there is by forgiving, what I call forgiving the unforgivable. So on one hand, people go, oh my, you had to forgive. You really did forgive your father, didn't you? Because as you tell stories about him, we can tell that it's authentic, it's real. And while I will say, yeah, it's really hard, and the murder of my father, and there's all sorts of stories with that on forgiveness too that we might get into. But what it really, that some of the toughest was forgiving myself
Mm.
over and over again about, all right, this horrible thing was happening to me. I thought I was protecting my little sister so that he wouldn't hurt her, because that's what he would tell me if I would keep my mouth shut. Only to realize later as an adult, he was already hurting her too. So it was
Mm.
just like, this was not doing it. So all of those things I had to keep looking at how to forgive myself. It was just really key. So I don't know if you have a question. Can I go on a little bit about
Well,
forgiveness? Go ahead. You
I
might.
I really I do want you to go on about forgiveness. I'd like to know from the audience, how is this resonating with you? Do you have any questions about this? Do you resonate that there's something in your life? And yeah, do you have a question about how you could step further into a space of forgiving the unforgivable? And forgiving the unforgivable is so true. But what you said was the key of what you said was I had to forgive myself. And here's the can you imagine? Well, of course we can imagine because we did. We're this young age, and yet we feel responsible for these things that are happening. We feel responsible, and I'm curious, how did you after the moment with your family and you tried to commit suicide because that's the lowest vibrating level. You just feel like there is no you're not worthy of anything, you're not worthy to do anything more in life and you're just going to leave. After that happened and you came back, what did what was that experience like right in there? Is that you were in you were in a moment with your family surrounding you and
Yeah.
then you came through that.
Yeah. Well, I think again, every individual is different. So overwhelmingly, what I did get was support from my family. And
Mm.
and at that time, I didn't tell them about the abuse.
Oh,
No, I didn't tell
I
them.
didn't either. Yeah,
I didn't.
exactly.
Well,
Mm-mm.
women and men who understand, because some people, how could you keep a secret like that? Like,
'Cause you
oh
don't
no,
no, you don't
no,
talk. You
no,
don't
I
mm.
didn't tell them. I didn't, and
I thought I was doing something wrong. You don't tell
yeah,
yo.
no, instead it was like I knew the wrong thing that
Yeah.
they could focus on is I tried to take my life, and that I was loved so much that it should be
Yeah.
big enough, even if I wasn't loving myself. And that's the way my brothers and sisters and my mom were. So what happened after that was a lot of, support and care. They would ask a lot about how I was doing, but also realize my father had just died. We're a family now of seven, quite poor and without the major breadwinner. So all of us at the same time, within months, I go to work. I lie about my age, that I'm 13, instead I say I'm older, and I start working at Macy's department store. And actually, that was a good thing. And this is the other thing is when you go about forgiveness, it's not linear. It's like, okay, I have this horrible thing, this unforgivable thing, abuse, murder, whatever it is, and you just there are other things. It winds like a river. So I do believe that in part that this going to work and being in this other environment, experiencing people and finding out some of the skills that I thought I had, but now I really knew, like I really good with people, and I'm love fast with numbers, and so all these kinds of skills that I learned in going there, and the bravery to get the bus and go by myself long distance, and still being young, into some parts of Kansas City that people would know where I lived, I grew up, was not a very safe place. But I felt like that gave me a whole lot in terms of doing that. The other part was I had to give up some things that I loved so much. Like with my father's death, there was no more sports, and sports was one of those things that allowed me to feel control of my body. I was a good second baseman, softball player.
That's
I
super
was
interesting.
excellent volleyball. And I'm
Yeah.
sharing this because it sounds like it could be, where are you going there? Because all of it matters as you go into the deep darkness of whatever the pain and mistreatment was, individually or collectively. There are all these things available to them. One of is our body. So we have to keep in touch with our body. Our body is really critical. It's the vessel that's here. Yes, we're more than our body. We're spirit, we're emotion, we're all this other stuff. But that's one of the key things. And so I could keep doing that, not playing sports, but I found ways of going out in nature and walking all the time, knowing that it was an important for me because it was a way of reconnecting to myself, and also of putting the parts back together. That was also very, very key. So I just want to let people know that it's not always that all of a sudden the suicide and everything opens up. It isn't. But what is important in terms of supporting somebody is them being able to sense, not just from the words, but from the behavior, the loving looks, the hugs, is that I knew I would never do that again. I knew it. I knew I just was never going to do that again. That I'm so sorry. I know I was supposed to be here. Because that's the second thing that helped me with the forgiveness too. My dream since I was 3 or 4 was that I was going to grow up. I didn't have language for it, but I could draw it. And it was the earth and all these stick people. And we had our hands on each other's heart. And I knew in kindergarten when they asked, draw what you're going to be when you grow up, the abuse was already happening for me. But what I
Mhm.
drew was that earth in that. And when I told the kids and the kids laughed. The teacher said, put away the crayons. But I knew that's why I'm here. I'm here to connect hearts. And lo and behold, between that dream, the forgiving the unforgivable, by going through the whole process of realizing that this wall that I had put up was keeping out some of the bad stuff, but it was also keeping out all the wonderful support and love. It was killing me. It was
That's
killing
right.
them. And that's what Nelson Mandela talks about, like, forgiveness and revenge, resentment, not forgiving. It's like drinking poison and thinking it's going to hurt the person who is the perpetrator. It's not. It kills you because inside of each of us is a knowing, that unrelenting, unconditional love of ourselves, that we forget that we're part of the sacred. Or if you don't believe in the sacred, well, that's hard for me to imagine with being at this podcast. But if you, or even universe energy, there's something bigger, and when you realize that, then you can let go of forgiveness. You can let go and forgive because in that child's mind, I had it all wrong. I thought forgiveness meant forgetting what happened. I wasn't forgetting what happened. So obviously, it meant that you were disloyal to your family, bringing up such a thing, disloyal to whole groups of people. If you
Oh,
talk,
that's a huge one. That's huge right there.
yes,
That's
that's
okay.
huge.
Okay, I just got I've never even I don't that that's an aha for me. I
Yeah,
don't think I've ever stepped into the fact it was disloyal. Of course, of course. Of course I wasn't going to tell anybody. Of course I wasn't going to tell my anyone
you're right.
because it would have been disloyal, and I was brought up you are loyal to your family, you are true. I
Absolutely
don't know I don't necessarily buy that one
right.
today. I'm going to
Right.
tell you.
Yes,
But
exactly. We do some sorting of what are just thoughts
yeah, yeah.
and what no, that doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
this
Choose.
completely, completely. So I love that. And the audience, it's really interesting. I want to bring up quickly. Kathy says I had a moment that was similar at 19. At the angry hand of another, I envisioned my niece and nephew, and I loved them too much to leave, and I wasn't done. That would not conclude my story, and I was saved by love. Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
by the way, audience, I want to point out that I've also put into the chat the link you can go to get your free gift from the Four Sacred Gifts. Please do that. I have it here. It's right. right here, theforsacredgifts.com. Please go over there and get your free gift. But you can wait till we're done, of course. Don't go away from us, just saying.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
that's yeah. So at the
Powerful.
risk of being risk of not being loyal to your family, we're not talking at the wow. That's just huge.
And it's
And
not only to your
wow,
family. Think about it.
yeah,
Think
yeah, she's
about the
right.
unforgivables that's happened to Jewish people or to indigenous people all over the world.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Genocide has been a part. You can name it, to women, to what we've done to the earth. We're
Oh
talking
yeah,
about a huge
that's
magnitude.
right.
And if your belief is that, um, well, it means I'm disloyal. It means that that it doesn't matter really. It's a little thing you've like pushed it. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that you don't seek justice. People think, oh, you're forgiving. That's because you're soft and you're weak, and it's like, no, no. What I'm saying is that that experience or experiences did happen. They're horrible and difficult. However, I am worthy of being present to now and to what I want to create in the future. And this is taking up energy. So I'm going to release, I'm going to forgive myself, I'm going to forgive other, and and then so that I can use energy for now and creating what I want. So what forgiveness really is it is unconditional love of self. Forgiving is the gateway to the unconditional love of self. As long as you're not forgiven, you still cannot completely love yourself. And so when you see a smile on my face, I'm ecstatic because I thought I understood freedom once, my abuser was gone. And once I did some of my healing, I thought, oh, no, no. When you really forgive, it opens up that. It is the pathway to your freedom, pathway to unconditional love. And then this indigenous elder, just before COVID, all the lockdown happened in 2019, I was at a Sundance, and this beautiful elder, Lakota elder, Basil Braveheart, um, was doing a special kind of ceremony there on forgiveness. And he came over and we had a short exchange, and he said, yeah, they told me about you, and you're coming because you're known as the forgiveness lady. And I said, well, you're also known as the forgiveness man. I know you've done a lot in terms of that work. He said, yes. And I get what you were talking about in your book and what you've shared, but I want you to consider adding one other thing. And I said, I was leaning in just like you. What is the other thing? It's a pathway to freedom, is a pathway to unconditional love. It's the passcode to your own divinity. It's the passcode to your own divinity. And when he said that, I was just beaming and he was beaming. And he goes, I know you'll put that in your next book. And I said, you better believe it. And I'll say it way before another book gets written, because this is part of, if forgiveness was that great,
It's the
why isn't
passcode.
everybody doing it? And I think it's in part because we have a misnomer about what it is.
Wow.
Well, because if we spend our energy on resentment, retaliation, and awful, and just spiraling downward, then what happens is we begin to identify as that. And that happened to me. I began to think that allowed me to go the lowest low for me, which was this attempted suicide, was that this is all I was. I was that pain. I was
Mm.
the abuse.
Mhm.
I was the person who's left the murder of my father, all the denigrating things about race of people of color. It left me with all of that. And it was like, wait a minute, that's just not true. And where the healing really broke open is because, again, we had to all go to work as fast as we could. And I was book smart enough. So I started college at 16. I got through high school quickly, college. And then my second year, I came to Colorado. And I felt like, oh my gosh, there are indigenous people at the university. I just had all these people that love me and all these other groups. And I'm such an extrovert. And all these people kept saying, you need to run for student body president. And in my mind, I was going, if they only knew who I really was. If they only
Oh.
knew. So see, there's still remnants. So it's not magical. When you forgive the unforgivable, it can be that. So it can be just, it flips.
Mhm.
But it also can be little remnants that come up that you get to like bury. It's like, and so what happened is, as the gift of unity, the gift of collaboration, as that kept growing, I start realizing, wow, these people are seeing all of this in me, all this leadership. They're trusting me to get and speak in front of the university and leaders and, you know, legislature and stuff for them. You know, it's not about ego. It was just about owning our gifts. And so I was like, okay. And so then at 21 is when I actually went to my mom to ever say anything. And I remember leaving, getting my car keys and telling my boyfriend, who's my husband now, and at the time, and saying, I'm going home. He goes, oh my gosh, that look. He goes, I think I know what you're going to do. Do you want me to come? I said, no, I have to do this on my own. And I went back and I confronted her. And it was really hard because this is a woman that I would say, of all the women in my life, she is like
Hmm.
paramount. But I had to deal, like, it wasn't just my father, it was mom. Where were you? Where were you? And I know you were babysitting all the time and you had 6 kids and that 7th grade. I mean, all the hardships, but where were you? And so the whole thing, and it took a few words from her after I got done with all my, oh my gosh, I screamed at my mom. You don't do that. But it just all came out, and she just looked at me and she goes, you're right. I should have been there. And now I am. Whatever you need, I'm here.
Wow.
Hmm.
Your mom could teach my mom a thing or two.
Yeah. It's
Promise.
powerful. It
Yeah.
was very powerful.
That's
And
incredible.
yeah, it was just, it's, so there's what I'm hope people is listening is that there are many, many different ways to forgiveness. These are some of the key ones that I know is to make sure you understand what it's not, because that can become part of the pull, and also the illusion of separateness, thinking that that's what I am. That's not me, Anita Sanchez, a whole human being. I'm
Yeah.
not my abuse. I'm not the murderer of my father. I'm not the person who murdered my father. He's not me. And all those things is like being able to take that and say, that happened. It was horrific. And I don't want that to happen to anybody again. But rather than constantly circling that, I free you, I free me. And now in this new awareness and having all these parts put together after the trauma, I can say, I can choose. So I choose to do equity, diversity, inclusion work. And I've done it for 47 years formally. I think it's a lifetime work, but nonetheless, formally, my own company. And I can help people connect their hearts all over the world. Now, I do that with a PhD, so I know all these tools and modern science and all these things, but I also weave indigenous wisdom in all of this because ultimately that's who we are as whole human beings. And the basic fundamental things we want is to be seen, to be loved, to be cared for. And that's not only 2-leggeds, that's all our pets, the 4-leggeds, the birds, the water, we're starting to realize all of this is like, this is a fundamental purpose of all human beings is to love and care. It's an original knowledge that we all need to do. And how do you do that if you're caught in the pains and hurt and no way out? So hopefully this, that these things that we're talking about, this journey and forgiveness, I just love you for bringing it up to dive deep into it because people will say they want to, and then privately one-on-one or in a very small group, they'll work with me or work with others. I really encourage people to get support on it. Um, but in the meantime, just continue to see who you are, what does give you joy, keep going towards that. Be aware, notice when walls are going up. Be in nature. I will tell you that nature, oh my gosh, and I know you
It
appreciate
is.
that, Debbie.
I
It's
do.
it's amazing. That's why even in business, corporate meetings, when we get stuck, I say, all right, get into pairs, go outside. They go, we're in the middle of it. It doesn't matter. Go outside, walk around the block, be gone at least 10 minutes. Sometimes I have them talk to each other. They don't talk at all, but I want you to find something in nature. It can be just a leaf on the ground. It can be a tree. It can be a flower, but I want you to just look at it
That's right.
and then come back in 10 minutes. And it changes things.
It changes everything.
Yeah.
I have to agree with that. I'm just we're getting, they love this. They love nature. Yes, and Selena says she did the best she could, seeing all of
And the
absolutely.
other, that's
See
part
all of
of this.
yeah.
Yep.
I had a conversation with my mom too. It didn't go quite that well. I also yelled at her too. There's this anger, and I was the same age.
Yeah.
I was around Well, I hadn't had my second son yet, so I definitely was around the same age, around 21, 22, right in there.
Mm.
But the most important part of this conversation is the fact that these things happen, that how that we choose to deal with them. And one of the things I appreciate about you, and the reason I'm willing to go deep with you, the only reason is because you're willing to come at this from a space of the not the victim,
Oh,
but
no.
a triumphant for a triumphant being in this world who's here to show up and say, yeah, yeah, it happened. And I'm not belittling it, but here's what's important. The most important piece. You also said that little remnants come up now and then. And I want to agree, at my almost 55 years, I still see remnants will come up. There's still tiny little things that will come up al- that will allow me to say, I get to feel this right now and I am safe
Yes.
and it's not true. Whatever
Yes.
thought about myself is coming in due to the memory that's resurfacing. And I get to be in it now as a safe adult, understanding that. But forgiveness gives these tools in order to step deeper into that. As women, this is a big change for the divine feminine in
Yes.
the world. And what's interesting is that my dad has been my dad since I was 3, and he's Mexican American. So that's the only dad I've ever known.
Mm.
I was brought up in a world where everybody's the same because we already were in our household. So I never understood the division. And then I get out into the world and I start seeing this and I don't understand it. It
Right.
makes no sense to me. But yet in my own self, I felt completely divided from everyone else because I felt so different. It was really weird. It was and it just I'm just thinking about that, like how strange that was. But I never had this distinction of people that they're different because of their skin or their race or their sexuality or any of those things. And I love that actually. I've
No,
always loved
no,
that.
it's great. It's great. And then as we get older and see what's going on, which is unfolding from it, we do see people do treat people different. Not everyone,
Yeah.
but lots do it. And the systems and structure we built also treat them different. Whether you're going to get a loan, whether you're buying a car, whether you're what schools and when you get admitted, how hard or not hard people
All
are
of it.
all over the place.
All of it.
So
And if you're female, but
yeah,
if you're female, it's one thing, but you had both. You're like, and I love that. As a woman, an indigenous woman going out there as somebody who is an authority figure, what kind of battles did you face with this? And how did the forgiveness process help you to have the strength to stand up as the strong woman that you are?
well, the reality is the indigenous people in my life didn't push back at all. Both the ones who are my relatives as well as the new people who I met when I told them, they were like very much just like you're part of the hoop of life, a loving circle, and they understand because the reality is abuse happens across all the different groups. It
Yeah, it
happens
does.
inside of indigenous. It happens across class. This is well, if I'm wealthy, I'm free from this. No, and in the corporate rooms when I'm working one on one, not one, but working just with women, we'll get into discussion about their dreams and where they're going and what are the barriers to come against. And I will tell you, time after time, 4 to 6 out of every 10 women have the experience of abuse.
Always. I,
And
I gotta say it's higher.
oh,
I'm gonna say it's higher.
it is. But
It's gotta be higher, yeah.
it is. And so the reality, what I find in those rooms, not what the research would corroborate, it's more like 8 or 9 out of every 10. And so there's a guiltiness of the people who didn't experience, like, what is it? No, like,
Oh,
no. We want roomfuls of women to not raise their hand because it's gotten dealt with that. This is not normal. This is not acceptable. But I will also tell you that on the research shows that men, 1 or 2 out of every 10 men have had abuse. And
yeah, that's
that's not true either. That's part of the problem. They also have. So
they don't
actually,
talk, yeah.
indigenous people were open arms. Um, my Latino family had a mix. One hand very much, oh, Anita, we didn't know. Why didn't you? I wish you could have told us because we would have been there for you. But we're here now. And others, I'm like, how could you share this publicly with people? Oh my gosh, this is family stuff. You don't share this out there.
That's my
And I just had to tell them, I understand what you're coming from. I had to work through all that too. And for me, this is part of my healing and wholeness. And if my life and my experience can help other people, then I'm going to go forward, and I'll just accept wherever you stand on this is fine, but this is where I'm going. And it didn't take very long. So in 2017, I had to tell a lot of people when my book came out, and they're used to all the other corporate kind of things that I do that are wonderful, appreciate bringing people together all over the world and doing really amazing,
yeah.
lots of money. But this, when they read that book, they were just like, oh my gosh, what it did in other parts of the family and extended out family, they became free to speak and to heal and to be whole.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's what happens for all of us. We are intimately interconnected. We know that.
so connected. Yeah,
Right? And
yeah.
science tells us that too. Even here, we know that we're affecting each other's heart rate variability. We're doing all sorts of things. You can walk to the room, well, as you do a lot, Debbie, with joy and uplifting, and that is contagious. But you can also walk into the room with really doom and gloom and anger, and that's
That
contagious.
is contagious.
So it's not about saying some emotions are good and some are bad. The key is emotions are what are a natural thing that come up. What's not natural is to hold on to them, even the joyful ones. It's to let it go like a river moving so that new can arise. Because if we keep holding, this was so great in my life, I'm never going to have that again. Well, then you suffer, and then you prevent the new stuff from happening. And something recently I'm having to deal. So I'm forgiving myself on that one, which is people keep saying, when's your next book? When your next book? Well, I promised my mom her book. So she's deceased. She died 12 years ago. But so I need to finish writing her book. I'm about halfway through. And then I want to write the next version of this book, which is specifically for women, the four Indigenous gifts.
Oh, I cannot wait.
Women. Yeah. But what I have to forgive myself for is because in my mind, I started going, oh my gosh, I've only written one solo book, 7 books, but the others were co-authored. One solo book. Oh my gosh, it's an international award winner. People are asking for it. I'm like, oh my God, I don't think I can do that again. And so I was like, what are you talking about? I know you. This is not about that. So what if it is if only a couple of people read it and it is of value, if it's only your family has it with, like, it doesn't matter. If you're called to do something, you're going to spend more energy and suffer by not going forward and doing it. So I am going to write those books.
Are you just like talking to me today, like, or what?
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
yeah,
Forgive yourself for the thing that you
yeah.
think that you're not doing is what I just heard you
Yeah,
say.
yeah. Don't let it just hold you down. Like, just
No, do
okay,
that.
I'm going to do that, and
Yeah,
that's all we can do. But with the key is for everybody watching or listening is that every one of us need it. See, in
yeah.
the group of life I was taught since I was little, I have my hands in a circle and they're flat, they're not upright. Is that everyone matters. Two-legged human beings, creepy crawlers, or four-legged friends, the birds, the what, everything. And
Everyone.
to have harmony and balance in our own life is to have harmony and balance in the entire hoop. And that's what we're seeing now in something can happen halfway around the world, but look at this, impacted the whole world. And now we have in every sector things unfolding. Well, we can just go, it's awful. And we can allow to feel the horror and the emotions and the sadness, which I do at times too. But then we can also go, what is opening up the possibility then to change these systems and structures, to collaborate with others in this hoop of life to make something that's more life-giving, because this isn't working. Just like the abuse that you experience, it is not working for you if you haven't forgiven. And don't hear that as a judgment. Hear that as an invitation in whatever way it is, and whatever way it is for you to get help, to go in nature, to take as long as it takes till your last breath. But please consider it such beauty, because it is the pathway to your freedom. It is a pathway to unconditional love. It is a passcode to your own divinity. And you are worthy and you are loved by virtue of just being.
Mm. You are worthy, 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 worthy. In fact, you matter. And I love this. And thank you for coming here today and reminding us that we matter and that no matter what we're going through, that you can get through the other side. But I really love how when you hold on to the pain, when you hold on to the hurt, when you hold on to the trauma, you hold on to the abuse, you said you can't allow the new things to come in for your life. You can't use it for your good if you're holding it onto it and it's not serving you any further. It serves us when we allow it to serve us. And you think, well, how can abuse serve me? By seeing it differently.
By being able to have, I don't know. So do not wish the violence that I experienced as a child on anyone.
Mm-mm.
However, I would never change my life. And I didn't understand what I hear people say that. Now I do. And that, could I have the compassion and understanding if I had not gone through that? Maybe. Could I have been able to watch, listen? I am really good at looking at what's going on in system structures. People are amazed when I go into new places and they go, and just after a few minutes, I go, I see this and this and this. I hear this. And they're going, how could you get that? You were only here like 5 minutes. I said, because I learned that very young. My survival depended on that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not saying at all that you want pain, hurts, and mistreatment. I'm doing everything I can to change systems and stuff, and making verbal what wasn't vocalized before, so that way we don't keep stuffing it down and pretending this part of the normal part of culture. No, it's not. We're all worthy, women and men, girls and boys, um, all the expanded genders of who you are. It's always been in nature. We all matter. We all belong here. And so
That's right.
I just really appreciate you and inviting me to come in and speak and having conversation with you for some new insights to come up with for me all the time too. And I love that, because that's part of my journey. Is I know I'm every moment, every day, I get to learn new things. And generally, I learn about me first, but a lot of times other people point that, and I go, wow, isn't that great too?
Ah, you make my heart sing. It just goes, "Pia!" Just and audience, I know that your heart's singing right now. And this is what it's about. There's freedom on the other side of anything that you've ever held that isn't serving you anymore. Any abuse, any pain, anything. And it's not a normal, it's not. And what's beautiful is the shift, and what we're here to do and what you are here doing is showing us another way to see things in perspective, how to love yourself. The audience, I love you guys. I just let it. Kelly says, "Let the new bubble up and out." I love that. Mm,
I like that too.
I love it. My husband, he is right. I don't see it. It's just not my thing. But I love that about me. But I'll tell you, I would not change a thing about any of the things I've ever been through either. I wouldn't change the beauty that I had. Listen,
Yes.
all the abusers I've ever known in my life all came from abuse themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to take a deep dive into suggesting for everyone that you, not as you're forgiving the abuser in your life, that you also remember that most likely that they came from some serious abuse themselves, and you're like, yeah, but that doesn't give them an excuse. I'm
No,
not even
no.
suggesting it. I'm suggesting the compassionate heart. Can you imagine that they were once an innocent child? Can
Yes.
you imagine that they've also been through what you went through, and that this was a learned behavior? And I
Yeah.
just want to leave it at that and say that if you're just now joining us, to go back in the beginning, there's a lot of really good nuggets and tools throughout this entire conversation that you can take and use in your life today to let go of the things that are keeping you playing small, not living to your full potential of the divinity that's within you. And I appreciate you, Dr. Anita Sanchez, because you are a brilliant, divine woman who I cannot wait to hug in person, because you're just in Colorado. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
listen,
Thank you.
everybody, Dr. Anita's got to go a little bit early today, so we're going to close the show out. But she does have something super exciting coming up, and I'm also going to post her website again. Please go get your free gift at the website, not the forgifts.com. It's right here. It's in there. All you got to do is click on that. And it's also in the description of this video, whether you're watching on YouTube or any of the other places that you're watching online. Just go ahead and find the description. You can find all the links. But there's one more thing that you have coming up.
Yes, it is. So if you feel called, please get a hold of me at forsacredgifts.com. You can just leave a message for me and I'll get a hold. I'm going to be leading a journey after not going for a couple of years. I've been leading journeys to the sacred headwaters of the Amazon. That's in Ecuador. It is magnificent. It's a transformational journey. And it's August 17th to 28th. If you feel the call, then please get a hold of me at forsacredgifts.com. You can leave a message there and learn more about the journey, its cost, the details. But I will tell you that I've been going to the Amazon since 2007. And if you're feeling the call to be immersed in the most beautiful rainforests, the heart, that many say, the heart and lungs of our earth, please, I'd love for you to join us.
Thank you. Please, everybody, do that. The links are all available for you. And if you didn't take anything else away today, take this away. Go out in nature. And Dr. Anita says to walk for at least 10 minutes out there. And I want you to do that. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if anything's coming up in your body, just allow yourself to feel it and walk it out. Get that energy out. Don't let it sit there and fester. Just get it out. So thank you so much. It has been a joy having you again. I can't wait to have you back. Oh, I love you. Oh, you're just amazing. Audience, you've been awesome today. I love you too. Everybody, have a super great Tuesday.